Welcome to the Mindset Connection podcast, where we showcase everyday people doing amazing things in the field of mental health and wellness. Thank you for joining us for our 32nd episode. If you're new to us, we are your hosts, Jennifer Clearwaters and Cindy O'Connell. And today we are doing our second virtual episode with a guest that I have been waiting to meet and get on our podcast. We are welcoming Linda Pevac, also known as Emma Stevens. And we'll get to why. She's got two different names, but she is coming to us from Tulsa, Oklahoma this morning. So we're so grateful and thank you for being here. I'm going to jump right in and let you know a little bit about our guest. Linda is the author of 3 memoirs, which form a series. The Gathering Place, An Adoptee Story, A Fire is Coming, and Choosing to Breathe. All 3 that I've read, they are absolutely excellent books. So Emma isn't just, I'm going to say it now, I just called you Emma. Linda isn't just an author, she's a survivor, a fighter, and someone who offers hope for those who have faced adversity. Her books focus on not allowing trauma, pain, and the struggle of navigating identity to define you. We just talked all about that before we just went live. Linda grew up with an authoritative, rigid adopted parents, and seeking help for herself, she found herself dealing with an abusive and manipulative therapist, which makes me so sad, which further highlighted the urgent need for change within the mental health care system, which I think we can definitely agree on. Linda is a devoted mother of 2 adult children and 2 beloved cat companions. Her passion for life, love, and learning echo her strong conviction of saying yes to life and seeing everything as being connected. So Linda, we are so thankful that you're here with us today. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here. So you are an advocate for people to understand how adoption impacts the children and the adults, the family that's adopting. So tell us your story. And interestingly enough, we just had a great discussion off camera, which you can elaborate on that too, because that was good insight.
It's a good story.
I'm just so happy to be here and having the opportunity to have a platform like this because, and especially I'm not even talking just to my adoptee community right now in the echo chamber, I'm able to speak to mainstream. So that's thrilling to me because I would like to get more of this message out to adoption is so nuanced and it's complicated and it's very difficult to navigate. For me personally, I have to do these labels because there are different labels of adoptees, right? I am adopted. I say it that way because it is not a one-time event. It's adoption is something, and being an adoptee, I go through my developmental stages throughout my lifespan until I no longer walk this earth because it's the way I developed, physiologically. But I am a U.S. domestic, same race, infant adoption from the baby scoop era, where I was adopted into a home that had the expectation that I would be a blank slate. And in the 60s, it was pretty common that not only the adoptive parents had that philosophy of thinking of needing their child to be a blank slate, society and the adoption agencies were also reinforcing that narrative that the younger you get a baby, the less baggage they have. So being adopted into a home where there was already I had an adoptive brother that was in the home and separate adoptions, but it was a very authoritative home where it was not allowed for us to individuate into the people that we were always meant to be. So there was a lot of adaptation. I was the adaptable adoptee, and it was difficult to navigate throughout my life. And I had I couldn't find a mentor to help me. There was no other adopted person that I knew other than my brother. And oddly enough, we never talked about it between the two of us. It didn't feel like a safe conversation. And also, we didn't have the language yet to understand what we were even feeling. Because we would hear from parents and society that you should feel grateful. And that was one of my parents' philosophies of where would you be without us if we hadn't saved you? So that was the hook of the course of control of kind of having the constant threat of being abandoned again if we didn't conform and if we weren't adaptable. So I learned how to people please, how to be the perfectionist, the performer. And my brother, he was the other end of the spectrum where he seemed to get in trouble for everything. He had a lot of risky behaviors and was actually even sent to a facility that we now know as the troubled teen industry. And it was not a good program for him to go to, especially with the type of person, his temperament, and it didn't end up well.
So sad.
Yeah. So when I first was introduced to you, I heard you on Annie Grace's podcast, This Naked Mind. And as I was listening to your story, I was just going, I have to read this book. So when I got the Gathering Place, it really reads like a fiction novel because there's so much in there that you can't believe is actually true. And your story, not to give it all away, has so many twists and turns that, you could have easily thought it wasn't a true story. So, what made you create Emma Stevens, first of all? Like, why did you need to do that? And maybe you can tell our listeners about how, like, something that was in your book that really resonated with me was when you talked about actually meeting up with your birth mother, because I know that sometimes people feel like if they could just go back to their roots and find out who their biological family is, it might soothe some of the trauma and everything's going to be okay after that. And that wasn't necessarily what happened to you.
Right. I mean, it soothed me in ways that I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. It gave me a lot of self-confidence because of the painstakingly way that I was able to find my birth mother and then eventually the rest of the family. That filled me with all kinds of feelings of endless possibilities. But what I thought I was looking for, I did not receive. In fact, I was greatly disappointed when I met her because as an adoptee, I had this ghost kingdom built in my head of who she would be. And of course, no one's really going to meet my expectations built on a fantasy that I'd built my entire life. Mm-hmm. So I meet the real person and she's got her baggage and she's got her things that she went through of why she placed me in the first place. I have a lot of compassion for her now that I probably didn't show her when I was 24 years old. But I've researched and found out so much about the baby scoop era and what she went through. But it set in motion for me because I was so disappointed in what I found that it kind of spiraled off into another situation that we won't talk about right now. But it set in motion that I was still going to be looking for a birth mother. And I didn't know where I was going to find that, but I was going to continue. And this was all unconscious, right? Mm-hmm. But I was still going to look for it. I'm trying to think of all the other questions you asked me before.
Your language, your name.
Yeah. Tell our listeners how it's in your book, but tell us how you created Emma Stevens.
Yeah. It's so crazy because names you could do a whole book on names and how identity is with a name, or is that how we have our identity? But the reason I used it, and strangely enough, my birth mother used a pseudonym at the maternity home when she was incognito to give birth. Mm-hmm. And so here I am, fast forward, writing books under a pseudonym. And I did it because I didn't want my adoptive family, to find out that I was writing these books. I knew there was not time to repair the situation. If they were to find out, they would never be able to wrap their heads around why I felt the way I did. They had always shown me that they didn't have the capacity to understand my way of thinking. And so I always kept that really private from them. And so using Emma Stevens was my way of saying some really vulnerable things that Linda maybe was not so comfortable getting out there. Mm-hmm. So, open. And so that was a really good aspect I will say that it worked that I used the pseudonym. My parents have passed now. My brother's passed. And using the pseudonym, I stand behind doing that. But there came a time where I understood that I was blending Emma and Linda in a really unhealthy way. So it was time for me to come out, if you will, and let everyone know that Emma's my brand name and Linda is really the author, and Emma is part of Linda. And that was really important for me to absorb and integrate these identities. And I talk a lot about that in the third book of how helpful that was and how liberating it's been to integrate and be on the process and on the road of integration.
That's great. Thank you so much for that.
So you're talking about, obviously, your experience as a child, even probably as a toddler, didn't matter. All through your time with your adopted family was difficult. So what about that child that's adopted by loving, caring parents that understand they're going to let that child be who they're supposed to be? What about that child? Is that child still impacted by the adoption?
The answer to that is yes. Because of the event of, I'll use the term primal wound. I'm not sure that you're familiar with Nancy Verrier's work in a book called The Primal Wound. It was actually her dissertation. She's a psychologist.
Okay.
She's still alive. And this was in the 1990s. She wrote a book called The Primal Wound. And it has been foundational for adoptees to understand what happens physiologically when you separate a birth mother and an infant at the time of birth. We don't even do that for puppies and kittens.
Yeah.
But yet
Yes.
somehow
Good point.
we feel human
Yeah,
beings
good point.
can be okay with not having their mother immediately skin to skin contact, smelling their mother, hearing their voice. All of
Yeah.
this is pre-verbal for an infant, but it is scientifically proven that a baby knows its mother. And the idea that you place this infant into a loving mother's arms that is a stranger to the baby, they're going to know the difference. There's going to be grief and trauma. And that trauma right there, if it's not tended to, is going to evolve throughout the adoptee's life into it's a reason why adoptees are overrepresented in mental health issues, addictions. We're 4 times more likely to attempt death by suicide. And looking into the troubled teen industry, where a lot of these, in puberty, a lot of these tendencies tend to show up as risky behavior, then it's going to start to unravel. And the adoptee doesn't know what's going on. The adoptive parents often don't know what's going on. But it's all, you wind back the clock to that trauma that was never tended to. And in my case, it was never even granted me
Right.
the grace that you have something to grieve.
So what would be an appropriate time? I adopt this child. I'm a loving parent. Parents, whoever my spouse is, we adopt this beautiful baby. We're so happy. We're going to allow this baby to grow and mold into who they're going to be. When would be the time that we would address these things or get help to address these things?
My answer would be for the hopeful adoptive parents to be doing their work before the adoptee even comes into the home.
Which is interesting that you're saying that, because why do, mothers, it takes 9 months and it prepares the mother and the father for that infant to be born. So basically adoptee parents should be doing something for 9 months to wait for this baby.
Yes. And really, if you're going to come into it healthy and you're going to be doing your own interior work, you've got to maybe wind that clock back a little more, because we know we don't get healthy in 9 months.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
A lot of a parent probably comes to adoption by infertility.
Yes.
That's a huge grief.
Yes.
Needs to be tended to and made sure that this adoptive baby is not a replacement.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you another question, which you may or may not be able to answer, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, what about those babies that are born to a surrogate?
I do have an opinion.
I'm just curious because you made my mind go there.
Because this is a popular way now.
Our adoptive community is growing all the time as a result of late discovery adoptees, not parent expected adoptees, surrogacy, donor conceived, assisted reproduction. It's just the community that I'm involved in that have these commonalities of the grief and trauma that's not tended to, and the primal wound. For your answer of surrogacy, it's still the primal wound.
That's what as you were speaking about it, I thought,
Yeah.
It's physiological.
Right.
Yeah.
And the baby doesn't know, like, oh, this is a deal that you did with these people. I understand now.
Yeah. So what can we do? So, I'm a therapist, and, why I was seeking you out all those years ago is because I work with people in very different stages. I've had people find out that they've been adopted, well late into life, and they can't, but maybe their or adoptive parents have passed on, their adoptive parents, or they don't know anything about, and it's just, they're in shock, they don't know. And I'm also having, I also work with younger people that are exhibiting some of the issues that you have described, and we're dialing back the clock to go, this is probably because of the adoption. And they're not even aware. So they're only figuring it out now because they're having mental health issues, or they're having substance abuse issues, and they're not feeling well, and they're not relating it to the actual trauma of adoption. So what is it, like, what can we do to help people when they finally get to this stage where they're identifying what they're going through with the adoption?
And I think it's important to not pathologize the adoptee. And instead, if you've done your research, you realize they're acting very normally in a normal situation. So what can we do to help mental health professionals? If you had a patient or a client that's exhibiting these kinds of issues, what can we do for them? Well, first of all, I commend you both on being aware of this, because I've been to many therapists that they were clueless that adoption had, even me saying I have trouble being an adoptee. We still never dealt with those issues. It was never even brought up. And too often that's the case. So I think what we're finding is a lot of adoptees feeling the calling to go into the mental health field, to be able to be what we call adoption competent or adoptee competent, meaning that they can speak directly to that lived experience. But I'm personally not saying that you have to be an adoptee to help another adoptee. Both of the counselors I have now are not adoptees, but they're very trauma informed. And I think they would admit that I've taught them a few things, and they've read my books, and they've been able to think about, they have empathy to be able to put themselves into my shoes. And while they don't have the same experience, they can put other life experiences and, basically understand what I'm saying. So I think that the more we listen to adoptees in overall mainstream, that there is another narrative. Stop listening to Hollywood. It's in almost every theme of a Disney movie of the orphan or the adopted child that lost its parents and all this and that. And, oh, isn't it beautiful that they were saved by these people? So if we change that narrative, listen to adoptees that are now, more and more of us are speaking out, more and more are writing their own books, I think that we'll just evolve.
Yeah.
So I think you said some really interesting things. First of all, the word listen. We should have it taped on our forehead so that as I'm talking to you, I have to listen. And I'm so happy for you that you found therapists that are actually good listeners. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that other experience that you had with a therapist that was not, I'm assuming they weren't a good listener, but they also had their own agenda. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could tell us about that.
It's such a hard thing for me to hear.
I know. Because, I have to say to you, I am not a therapist, but Jen is like, I send everyone to her because she just gets it, and she's willing to listen. And what she doesn't know, she will learn. And that's the key. We can't know everything, but we can adjust and try to learn.
Yeah.
So,
and your experience with when I was reading the book, your experience with this therapist just really, it pained me. It really did.
That's because you're a good one.
Mm-hmm.
She is.
It made me so sad. But if you can explain to us what happened with her.
And let me just start by saying that an unethical person seeks out any profession if they feel like they can control and it's an agenda that they want to see through. They go to professions where people have to be vulnerable with them. And it's just a whole lot easier to indoctrinate and groom them to whatever purpose they want.
Yes.
Whether you're a policeman or even a school teacher, if you're a predator.
100%.
Yep.
Teachers, if they don't like kids, why are you teaching?
Yep.
As soon as you said that, I thought of that. Yeah.
Unhealthy people that need to have their own needs met through other people. But I did find one of those, unfortunately, and it was life-changing. And I mean that by it, just like being an adoptee, it's something that I will deal with throughout my lifespan. I'm also going to be healing from that experience for the rest of my life. Now, I've been able to change my relationship with it and transcend it, but yet I'm into a calling now. Again, I find myself being an advocate for therapy harm, those exploited by their therapists, doctors, or counselors. And don't even get me started about life coaches in unregulated areas where there's no governing board that's telling or overseeing anything. But one of the first questions I asked this therapist is, can you help me with my adoption angst? I'm 32, 30, I can't remember exactly about the age I was, but letting her know that I was still grappling with what that meant. I had no language of how to even describe it to her. And her answer was absolutely. And so we started therapy, and I quickly realized that, like I said before, adoption never really even came up. It went into motion it was designed where she fostered a dependency of me onto her to be the mother I never had. And so, to borrow from the previous conversation where I told you I was still looking for a birth mother, a nurturing mother that I never had through adoption or through birth, when this psychologist said she wanted to be that for me, she needed me to look at her in that way, I thought, well, hallelujah, thank you very much. I've been looking for you all my life. And so it didn't take much for her to groom me and indoctrinate me into her private agenda of what she was really seeking from me. And it set into motion a very unhealthy, dangerous, exploitative. I mean, it just almost broke me, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking. I'm just.
What do we say?
We both sat back and just, the body language says everything. But I'm so sorry to hear that. But
how
obviously,
did you get out of it?
Because you obviously have.
Yeah. Like, because, you might have, people feel after a while that they're so manipulated that they might know that this is not the right place for me, but they don't know how to get out. So what was the moment that you were actually able to pull yourself away from this person and say, I need to seek help from someplace else?
Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing about the power differential And that's
Yep.
what I learned in my childhood is my parents were my gods.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't want to be abandoned, I do everything they want.
Yep.
So I carry that into adulthood, and I see this powerful psychologist with all these certificates on the wall. I immediately give her my blind trust. She must know what she's talking about. So it didn't start unraveling to me until I was with her almost 24/7. And even a good predator or a charismatic person can't leave their mask on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it started slipping, kind of, if you imagine it side to side, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, what was that view of her? That doesn't look like the loving, kind mother I always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you remind me of my adoptive mom, who was very cruel to me. And that became, I got enough of those glimpses where in the moment, I had a surge of adrenaline and I was able to leave her, get away from her, and stay away from her. But what I didn't realize is that a lot of my trauma was going to really begin after I left her because it was like an addiction. I was going through withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a hard, long road, and there wasn't a lot of help because, when someone comes out of a cult, there is not a lot of deprogramming people out there that know the proper ways to unhook all of the tentacles that happen because they have you in such a grip. But eventually it happened.
Were there others that she had done this to?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Usually it's that way.
Yeah, that's what I assumed from the way you were speaking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're usually repeat offenders.
Right.
Although I was the only one that ever came to be the whistleblower and went to the board of ethics. The other people she had traumatized to the extent that they were not emotionally stable enough
Mm-hmm.
to make the complaint with the boards.
Well, she knew exactly who to pick,
She did.
Yes.
which is
That's
usually the
how
case.
it is. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about your books and what your new book is about. Yeah. You have 3 books out currently.
And I call them a trilogy
Mhm.
Okay.
because they all build on each other. They're like stepping stones.
Mm-hmm.
Almost see me getting on my healing path, the first book to the second to the third. I didn't set out to do it that way. It just organically unfolded that way.
Mhm.
After the first book, I thought, I'm done. I wrote my book. I'm good. And it didn't happen that way. And I'm happy that it didn't. And I'm also happy that I trusted myself enough to say and feel my emotions to say, there's more I need to write.
Mm-hmm.
And these books have been so life-giving to me. I can't even tell you how it's changed my life for the better. And it's changed my whole, there were other things that happened up to that point that were catalysts to set me on that road. But writing your story, I feel like everyone should honor themselves in that way. Even if they just put it in a drawer, they don't have to publish. But it's just so self-honoring. Everyone has a story. Everyone does.
You're
Yes.
absolutely right. I was going to ask you what the takeaway was for you, for the listeners, but I think that's it.
Write
your story.
Everyone
Write your
has a story.
But tell us about your new book, though, too.
Oh, the new book, Choosing to Breathe, is really a mindset. There's a lot to be said in that title.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to be true to what I was experiencing and where I saw myself headed, instead of it just being, oh, I want to write a third book. It had to be true. It had to be authentic to what I was really going through. And I was allowing it to unfold whenever it needed to unfold. Meaning I didn't try to rush the process. I was choosing to breathe. And I had to keep reminding myself of that because I do tend to get excited and want to rush things along. But if I'm admitting that I'm embracing this idea that I have choice now. In my childhood, all of us didn't have choice, but now I do. And so I'm recognizing that I'm taking my power back. I'm able to integrate who I am. I can slowly start to unravel all of the adaptations I had to become to survive. And while I am thankful for me being able to find out how to survive, those things are hindering me now. And the more I get to back to who I am and keep developing in that way, my creativity's coming back, my curiosity's coming back, my joy for life, and it's just been a game changer.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's a really good book. It really
Well,
is.
which is why your book spoke so much to me.
Ah, yes. Linda
May I-
read
Thank
our
you.
book when it first came out.
There's a short paragraph here that meant a lot to me, if I could read it just real quick.
Of
Sure.
course.
It's on page 135, and it says, with consistent practice, everyone can make change. Let your beliefs be limitless. Everyone has the power to transform. It starts with one step and a mind open to change. Progress. Everything is progress.
Yeah.
And that was just, when you read those, it's like a roadmap or a road sign along the way. Keep going. You've got this. That's what your book was to me.
That's
wow.
wonderful. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for saying
thank
that.
you.
It's really
Appreciate
great.
that.
So, Linda, besides really being mindful about the type of therapist someone is choosing, what other resources are there out there for adoptees? Are there any groups you could recommend? Sometimes people are hesitant with like a Facebook group or an online group because, there are predatory people in those as well, and they can be also traumatizing. But are there any really good resources that you can suggest for someone?
I reached out probably pre-COVID and found some really good support groups on Facebook. They are
Okay.
private, and I would suggest that if you join one that is, an adoptee only private group, be silent for 6 months
Hmm.
and watch the comments and see, do they align with your philosophy?
Mm.
Or do you hear people being angry at each other or tearing each other down or being opinionated or just self-promotion? And then that's when I say, maybe try to find another group. So keep going until you find a group that speaks to you. And I've found that when you find your community, it can be so helpful.
Hmm.
Caveat is that unhealthy people are everywhere.
Yes, that's true.
AA. You have to be careful. And I think awareness is key. Once you've learned how to align yourself and attune to a healthy message, understanding healthy message versus something different. And I think that means you work on yourself until the point where you're able to identify if you're in a safe place or not. But there is help out there, and the community can be wonderful.
So, Linda, here you just did it again. You said, no, positive. You just said, stay quiet for 6 months. And it's a form of listening. You're just going to watch what happens and see how the people are and what the reactions are from people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are living what you're saying too, because that was such wise advice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people think I have to jump in. No, take your time and just sit back and see what's happening.
Exactly. They may be so excited they found a group that let me just mesh right in there.
Yeah.
So,
Or to bring up blind trust again.
yes.
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 Just because someone has a flashy phrase or coins a term, oh, well, they must know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Be
Yeah.
patient. They very well may know what they're talking about, but give it a little time. And then I'd say after the 6-month period, dip your own toe in. Maybe make a simple comment or a simple question. See how that goes and see what responses you get. Now, there's maybe going to be one comment that won't be in alignment with you.
Mhm.
But if you get 10 comments, and it seems to be the majority of comments are negative, then you might not be in the place where you should be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have choice now.
That's
You
right.
pick your bags, you go to the next group and see, well, let's see if this is a fit.
Yeah. So if people are listening now and they're thinking, wow, like I need to learn more about her, buy a book or, take a look at all your information, how can people find you? What's the best way?
Well, I have a website that is Emma Stevens Writer, all one word, .com,
Mm-hmm.
or you can go to Amazon. And I am listed as Emma Stevens on Amazon. And if you pull up one book, usually the other two come up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an easy way. And if you want to look at social media for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it would be Emma Stevens Writer.
Okay, wonderful.
All
We'll
right.
put all that in the show notes.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that we missed that you would like to share with the audience?
Something just jumped in my head, which is
Sure.
Yes, good.
unusual because usually by this time I'm saying, well, we covered everything. But the idea of, and I say this a lot in the third book, about where I was able to realize I was telling myself a false story most of my life. Or I was listening to the story that other people wanted me to adapt to. And once I was able to tear that apart, or let's say, put it into sections where I could say, is that even true? Now, I wouldn't throw things out that really were true. I keep those, but the things that are just flat out lies that aren't me, I get to eliminate. And so now I get to decide what my narrative is and what my story is and where I'm headed. And so I would just challenge people out there, regardless if you're an adoptee or whatever you are,
Mm-hmm.
is challenge your thoughts.
That's
Listen to
right.
what you
Right?
We say
Jen
it all
talks
the
about that
time.
all the time. Those
Yeah.
are Jen's
Is it true?
words.
Is it true? Or is it a
it
thought?
even true?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it even
yeah.
true? Mhm.
Because we have, I think it's 90,000 thoughts a day, and 80% are negative and repetitive.
Mhm.
So, what are we doing
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Like,
It's just a
just
thought.
Yeah.
got to challenge it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, some final questions that we ask all of our guests. How do you view failure?
We didn't
Am I
send
ready
you
to
this
talk?
one.
No, yeah,
Okay,
you don't
I
get this
do have
one.
an answer. I do.
Okay.
And that is, I look at everything now as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And if the universe brings me something, instead of me saying, oh, do I have to do this again? Or why is life giving this to me? I'm like, okay, what is the opportunity here? And sometimes my South Star can teach me just as much as a North Star can. And I value failure because I'm able to look at, okay, how can I reconfigure this and make it come out to be a more positive direction next time? If I
Mhm.
Yeah.
don't have that contrast, how would I ever know what the ultimate is if I didn't have the failure, all those in between tries, and then the positive?
100%.
Yes. We
Yep.
agree.
So, what are your 3 most important strengths? And I know that you have way more than 3, but just go with your gut. Don't overthink.
um, I would say my ability to tap into my creativity is a strength, and it can also be a downfall because I am learning balance. Because sometimes I can get into it and get so excited that I reach the point of anxiety. So when I get back to uh, creativity and that everything should be in balance, whether it's a good thing or not. So what is another strength? I would say my ability to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
if you
obvious.
develop
Yeah.
being reflective and having awareness, then it really does a lot of, you're halfway there.
So
It's
true.
Often,
So
often
true.
something that's skipped a lot too.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Yeah, people don't reflect.
No.
I made a mistake, but they don't look at what
Yeah.
caused it, what they did. They just go on.
Yeah.
And make the same mistake again. All right, strength number 3.
Okay, since I'm going to piggyback off what you just said, and it's my ability to apologize. I do that with my children. I don't think that shows any kind of weakness.
No.
It shows that I'm human.
No. And that you
So-
can admit a mistake.
Yeah.
Something that people also don't do very often these
Exactly.
days.
Exactly. So what's going well in your life?
Well, it's not that I have no challenges or no struggles, but it's how I deal with those now. I've changed my relationship with looking at challenge as opportunity. And so for that reason, most everything is going well.
Mm.
And that would include, a real struggle of, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but I do have struggles, but I have just changed the way I look at things.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. This is life. Life
Yep.
never said that it was going to be perfect all the time.
No, and everyone has struggles.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then these are a few more questions. And since you read the book, you're going to understand what the questions are. Is there something you want to change?
Just yes or no?
Yes,
Okay. So what's holding you back?
I'm in the process.
Okay. So what is one more thing that you can do to take a step forward?
Trust myself more.
Right. Lots of
Love that.
self-reflection there.
There's a lot
Good
of
job.
self-reflection.
You walk the walk, don't just talk the talk.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted to go back to the time when I had listened to you on Annie Grace's podcast, and you were talking about, this goes back to how, sometimes people who have been adopted can find themselves struggling with substance abuse or other mental health issues. So what could you recommend to someone if they're listening and maybe somebody hasn't yet identified what's going on with them and made that connection that it could be related to the adoption process? When was your moment when you were dealing with mental health struggles that you actually said, okay, this could really be connected?
It didn't happen all in at one time. It was over time where, I'm still coming out of the fog or adoptee consciousness even now. Because I think if we came into that awareness all at one time, it'd just be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I started listening to podcasts. I read books. I talked to people. Step one with understanding that I had a problem with addiction was asking for help.
Yeah.
With the right people.
With the
I
right
asked for
people.
help.
Mm-hmm.
And everything from that point forward, I was able to start looking at everything in my life and coming out of the fog of everything and putting myself back in a way that was in a much more healthy way. And through that process, I was able to see how much I was shaped and formed by being an adoptee. But it's hard for us because that's all we know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I've ever been a kept person. That's a phrase we use that I was never kept I wasn't parented by my birth parents. And so how do I know the difference? But now I do, I came into that awareness, and it was just through a lot of hard work.
Well, yeah,
You
doing
can see
hard
that.
things.
Doing hard things, yes.
And yeah, it's definitely hard. And there's sometimes, there's some cases where I've had, and I know that you've talked about this too, where there are people who they're not even aware, like they weren't told about their adoption. So they may know that they're having these struggles, but they haven't even been able to connect that back to being adopted because they were never shared that this is an event that happened to them. It makes it really hard. Really hard.
The interesting thing with late discovery and even the not parent expected, they said somehow they did know. There was
yes, they always knew there was something
different
off.
or something off. Right.
And so that's why we have really joined together as a community, because we have a lot of commonalities, not that our experiences are exactly the same, but there are a lot of commonalities. And so, it's really interesting that they are coming to these conclusions that they always knew something wasn't quite right. And the betrayal that they are feeling is just off the chart. Who knew that DNA analysis was going to bring a whole slew of things where people think, oh, here's a gift of DNA with ancestry, and then it changes their lives forever.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. And that's what was happening.
So many stories like that. So, we also like to ask our guests, what is your self-care? How do you take care of yourself?
Do you have another hour?
Yeah. Well, then that's good
Well,
because you must have
Yeah,
you must have a lot to
I
do.
love kickboxing. I love yoga. I write, which is so therapeutic. And so
Yes.
I was able to bust that myth of self-care being selfish.
Yep.
Because the relationship I have with myself, if I don't first have that and be my own cheerleader, I can't help anybody else. I can't love my children better. I can't have a connection with you and have it be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts, know thyself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
All right.
That's great. Do you have any rituals, things that you do every day or anything in a routine that definitely keeps you grounded and level?
Well, I would say the exercise is very important to me because it is therapeutic and incorporates it's the somatic experiencing of being in the moment. I am exercising. I hardly ever think about anything in my head
Mm-hmm.
other than how am I going to lift this weight right now successfully.
Yes.
So I think that is a ritual, and it's my therapy, going to my counselors to do EMDR, IFS work. All of that is so important to me. I know I spend a huge amount, but it's worth it to me. And I've accepted that it's a priority for me.
Yes. And it's an investment in yourself.
Yeah. You
Mhm.
are the priority.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Right before we wrap up, who are your sources of strength, or what are your sources of strength?
I'm just thinking of some spiritual leaders and talkers like Richard Rohr. I just love everything he has to say. I love the Enneagram. I'm not sure if it's a personality assessment tool. It's really helped me identify and enhance my own personality and minimize the unhealthy traits so I can move to the higher end of my my number, and then understand and be more reflective when I am going into more unhealthy attitudes and behaviors. So it gives me a roadmap. So I use that quite a bit.
Yeah.
My community helps keep me grounded and helping others, which is what I'm hoping my books are doing, and speaking on podcasts. Because you know what? I listen to all of the same. And when someone said some of these ideas, it gave me permission to do the same.
Yes. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for taking your time today and tuning in with us. Like I said, it's years coming, so I'm so excited that we can finally make this happen. So we will put all of the information about your website and all of your books in our show notes and send it out into the world. And so if you're listening and you feel like Linda can help you, please give her books a shot. They're actually incredible. All three have been great, and you've really helped my patients a lot. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much to both of you.
Yes.
You're welcome. So we always end every episode by saying, remember to pause, breathe, and then respond, and also to do hard things. And I think Linda is a role model for all of us in doing hard things.
Yes.
And you can see the beautiful place that she's at right now that she did herself.
Yep.
So kudos to you.
Yes. Definitely hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Rewarding
Linda.
though, right?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.